You know what drives me absolutely crazy? Watching gardeners spend 3 to 5 hours every single week dragging hoses around their yard, adjusting timers, checking soil moisture with their finger like some kind of plant doctor, watching their tomatoes wilt despite all this effort, and still spending their weekends as unpaid maintenance workers for a garden that's supposed to be feeding them instead of draining their time and money. It's like being trapped on a hamster wheel where the faster you run, the more dependent your plants become on your constant intervention. I spend way too much time studying how indigenous polyculture systems sustained entire communities for centuries without a single sprinkler head, drip line, or irrigation timer. And it absolutely drives me nuts that 99% of modern gardeners have no idea these self-watering design principles even exist. If you're exhausted from being your garden's irrigation slave, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Here's something that should make you angry. Americans spend over $4 billion every single year on residential irrigation systems, and the average home gardener loses 3 to 5 hours weekly just keeping plants watered. That's 150 to 250 hours per year. Over 6 full days spent being a human sprinkler system. And here's the kicker that nobody wants you to figure out. This entire problem is self-inflicted. Your garden needs constant watering because modern garden design is built around principles that guarantee dependency. Shallow-rooted annuals planted in rows, bare soil that bakes hard between plants, monoculture spacing that creates microclimates of stress and competition. You're not failing at gardening. You're succeeding at a broken system that was designed to keep you buying solutions. Meanwhile, the polyculture food systems that sustained indigenous communities through centuries of droughts, heat waves, and variable weather did it without spending a single hour on irrigation labor. Zero. They understood something we've completely forgotten in our obsession with products and quick fixes. Water management isn't about intervention. It's about building soil structure, designing plant relationships, and creating layout patterns that hold moisture passively through observation-based principles that work with physics instead of fighting it. If you're ready to stop paying and fighting and start designing a self-regulating system, this video will show you exactly how. But first, you need to understand why your current setup is working against you at every single level. The modern residential garden, neat rows of the same plant, bare soil between them, shallow-rooted annuals that need constant babysitting, is designed around a century-old industrial agriculture model that was never built for sustainability or resilience. It was engineered for maximum short-term yield using external inputs, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and yes, constant irrigation. You've been gardening backwards, and the water dependency you're experiencing right now isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. A feature that keeps you trapped in a maintenance cycle that benefits garden centers, irrigation companies, and everyone except you. Here's what most people miss about soil and water. Your soil isn't just dirt sitting there doing nothing. It's supposed to function as a living sponge that captures rainfall, holds it against evaporation and drainage, and releases it slowly to plant roots over days or even weeks. But compacted clay soil, which is what most residential yards become after construction equipment rolls over them during building, acts like pavement. Water runs off. When it does penetrate, it drains through fast because there's no organic structure to grab it and hold it. The biological community that should be building that spongy structure, fungi, bacteria, soil organisms that create stable aggregates, can't survive in compacted bare soil that bakes to 140 degrees under direct sun. Think about it. Natural forest soil holds 10 to 20 times its weight in water because it's built from years of layered, decomposing organic matter. That partially broken down material, what soil scientists call humus, acts like millions of microscopic sponges distributed through the soil matrix. Each particle holds water through surface tension and releases it slowly as plant roots create a moisture deficit nearby. Your tilled annual bed has maybe 2 to 3% organic matter if you're lucky. You're burning through that organic matter every season faster than you're replacing it. The result is soil that can't hold moisture for more than a few hours in summer heat. You're not watering plants. You're compensating for broken soil physics that your design created in the first place. Now let's talk about what actually works. The self-watering garden isn't built on products. It's not built on irrigation upgrades or fancy timers. It's built on three core principles that indigenous growers observed and refined through centuries of practical trial and error. First, organic matter is your water savings account, and you build it in place, not in a compost pile across the yard where you're wasting energy hauling material back and forth. Second, living plants are your mulch layer, your nutrient cyclers, and your microclimate engineers all at once. They do the work while you harvest the food. Third, polyculture design creates relationships where plants support each other's water needs instead of competing for the same resources in the same soil layer at the same time. When you understand these principles, the specific techniques make perfect sense. When you skip the principles and jump straight to tips and tricks, you're just applying band-aids to fundamentally broken design. Here's where it gets practical. Principle 1. Soil organic matter as water storage. Every single percentage point of organic matter you add to your soil increases water holding capacity by roughly 16,500 gallons per acre. For a typical home garden bed of 400 square feet, that's about 150 gallons of water storage per percentage point of organic matter. The strategy is continuous passive organic matter addition through a technique called chop and drop. You grow support plants, comfrey, which we'll talk about in detail, specifically to cut back multiple times per season. You drop the cut material right where it falls. No wheelbarrows, no compost piles, no turning. Soil organisms consume it where it lands, and it becomes humus that holds water right in your planting beds. The work happens in place, and your soil's water-holding capacity improves every single season without you spending money or breaking your back. This is how you stop being dependent on constant watering. You're literally building a moisture battery underneath your food plants. Principle 2. Living mulch instead of bare soil. When soil is exposed to direct sun, surface temperatures hit 140 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit in summer. At those temperatures, water evaporates instantly, and soil biology dies. But when you cover soil with living plants, low ground covers, spreading squash leaves, dense polyculture canopies, you create a microclimate where soil stays 20 to 30 degrees cooler and moisture evaporation drops by 60% or more. Indigenous Three Sisters plantings understood this perfectly. Corn grows tall and provides vertical structure. Beans climb the corn and fix nitrogen from the air into soil. Squash spreads along the ground with huge leaves that shade every inch of soil, block weeds, and create a moisture-conserving microclimate under the canopy. That's not three separate plants competing for water. That's a design system where each species creates conditions that reduce everyone's water needs. You're engineering your own weather at ground level. Principle 3. Deep-rooted support species that mine water from depth and build soil structure simultaneously. This is where it gets interesting. Most annual vegetables have shallow root systems, 12 to 18 inches deep, because we've bred them for fast growth and quick harvest, not resilience or self-sufficiency. But perennials like comfrey, daikon radish, and certain native deep-rooted species can send roots 6 to 10 feet down, accessing groundwater and moisture reserves that your tomatoes will never reach on their own. When you cut back these deep-rooted plants and drop their leaves as mulch, you're essentially pumping deep water up to the surface zone and converting it into organic matter that holds moisture right in the root zone where your food crops need it most. Comfrey alone can be cut back 3 to 5 times per growing season. Each cutting drops nitrogen-rich leaves that decompose in 2 to 3 weeks, building soil structure and water capacity exactly where your vegetables are feeding. You're not running separate systems for fertilizing and watering. You're running both loops through the same plant-based infrastructure. Now, here's what most people miss about implementation. These aren't abstract concepts you admire and then ignore. These are specific plants and combinations you can install in any yard, any bed, any container this season. Let's start with the three sisters if you want to see the entire concept in action in one planting area. Corn goes in first. Plant it in a block, not a row, so it cross-pollinates properly. Once the corn reaches 6 to 8 inches tall, plant pole beans at the base of each stalk. The beans climb the corn for support and pull nitrogen from the air, converting it into a form that feeds the corn and builds soil fertility for free. 2 weeks after the beans go in, plant squash or pumpkins around the perimeter of your corn block. Those squash leaves spread out and cover every inch of bare soil within 4 weeks. The result is a microclimate where soil temperature drops by 25 to 30 degrees compared to bare ground. Evaporation is cut by 60% or more. The ground stays moist for 3 to 5 days after a rain because the leaf canopy is blocking direct sun and wind that would otherwise pull moisture straight out of the soil. You've just built a self-shading, self-feeding, moisture-conserving system using 3 crops you were probably planning to grow anyway. That's not extra work. That's intelligent design that eliminates the work you're currently doing every single evening with a hose in your hand. For deep-rooted moisture miners, comfrey is your foundation plant. It's a perennial that spreads through root division, sends taproots 8 to 10 feet down into subsoil, and produces massive leaves loaded with nitrogen, potassium, and trace minerals. You plant it once, and it comes back every spring for 20 years or more with zero maintenance. Cut it back when the leaves reach 18 to 24 inches tall right before it flowers, and drop those leaves as mulch around your tomatoes, peppers, squash, or any other heavy feeders. The leaves decompose in 2 to 3 weeks, releasing nutrients directly into the root zone and adding organic matter that boosts water holding capacity with every single cutting. A single established comfrey plant can give you 3 to 5 cuttings per season. Each cutting drops 2 to 4 pounds of nitrogen-rich mulch material. Over a full growing season, one comfrey plant produces 12 to 20 pounds of organic matter that builds soil structure and holds moisture. That's 12 to 20 pounds of material you didn't have to buy in bags, haul from a store, or process through a compost pile. The plant does the work. You just harvest and drop. Daikon radish is your short-term soil renovator for breaking compacted ground. Plant it in late summer or early fall. The taproot drills straight down 12 to 18 inches, breaking through hardpan and creating channels that allow water and air to penetrate deep into the soil profile where your vegetable roots will grow next season. When winter comes and temperatures drop, the radish dies back and decomposes in place, leaving those channels open as permanent pathways for water infiltration. The following spring, your soil drains better after heavy rain, but also holds moisture deeper in the profile, exactly where vegetable roots need it during summer heat. You're not tilling. You're not hiring someone with equipment to break up compaction. You're planting a radish that does the biological tillage for free and leaves behind better soil structure than you started with. That's how you fix broken soil physics without a single hour of back-breaking labor. White clover as a living ground cover does triple duty in a self-watering system. First, it's a nitrogen fixer. Those root nodules pull nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form that feeds nearby plants, so you're building fertility while you cover soil. Second, it's a dense, low-growing mat that shades the soil surface, keeping ground temperatures 15 to 20 degrees cooler than bare earth, and cutting evaporation by half or more. Third, it attracts beneficial insects, predatory beetles, parasitic wasps, hoverflies that feed on the clover nectar and then hunt aphids, caterpillars, and other pests in your vegetable plants. You're getting fertility, moisture retention, and pest management from one plant that you mow back a few times per season to keep under control. Compare that to bare soil between your vegetable rows that bakes hard, grows nothing but weeds, and contributes zero function to your system. Clover turns dead space into working infrastructure that supports everything around it. At this point, you're designing like an ecosystem engineer instead of working as a maintenance employee for your own garden. You're stacking functions. Every plant does 2 or 3 jobs simultaneously, and those jobs support each other instead of creating new problems that require your constant intervention. The squash that shades your soil is also producing food. The comfrey that builds your soil structure is also mining deep water you couldn't access otherwise. The clover that fixes nitrogen is also managing pests and holding moisture. This is how you break the dependency cycle. You're not fighting your garden with daily labor. You're setting up relationships that regulate themselves while you focus on harvest instead of maintenance. But here's the reality that stops most people. You can't rip out your entire yard and start over. You've got HOA rules that restrict what you can plant. You've got limited space. You've got existing layouts you can't change. Or you're just not ready to commit to a full redesign without seeing proof that this approach actually works. That's fine. You can scale this system down to fit any situation and still get 60 to 80% of the water-saving benefits without turning your life upside down. Got a single 4x8 raised bed? Plant tomatoes in the back third. Plant beans at the base of each tomato stake for nitrogen and vertical space efficiency. Plant clover or low-growing herbs like thyme as a ground cover in the front third. You've just created a mini polyculture that holds moisture 2 to 3 times longer than a monoculture tomato bed planted in bare soil. Same space, same harvest potential, half the watering labor. Got containers on a patio or balcony? Use self-watering container principles. Bottom layer of gravel or pebbles creates a water reservoir. Middle layer of organic rich soil mix. Top layer of living mulch like creeping thyme or oregano that covers the soil surface. Water once every 3 to 4 days instead of daily. And the herbs you're growing as functional mulch are also edible. You're not sacrificing productivity. You're designing intelligence into small spaces where every square inch has to work harder. Even in ornamental landscapes, where neighbors or HOA rules demand a certain manicured aesthetic, you can embed these principles invisibly. Replace your water-hungry lawn strip with a native ground cover polyculture, low-growing sedges, flowering thyme, native strawberries, white clover mixed together. To an untrained eye walking past, it looks like an intentional meadow garden or naturalized planting. To you, it's a self-mulching, moisture-retaining, nitrogen-fixing system that needs mowing twice per year instead of weekly watering and constant maintenance. Plant comfrey or other deep-rooted perennials behind existing shrubs where they're hidden from street view, and use them as chop-and-drop mulch factories for your visible ornamental beds. You're working within social constraints while still running the underlying water-saving systems that do the actual work. The design is invisible to neighbors. The results, reduced water bills, healthier plants, free weekends, are obvious to you. Here's how this plays out long-term, and this is where it gets really exciting. Year 1, you're establishing plants and learning what works in your specific microclimate and soil conditions. You're still watering more than you want because the soil structure isn't built yet, and plants are getting established roots. That's normal. That's expected. Year 2, your perennials mature and spread. Your soil organic matter percentage starts climbing from 2% toward 4 or 5%. You notice you're watering half as often as you used to, and plants are handling heat stress better. The system is stabilizing. By year 3 and beyond, you've got a self-regulating garden that holds moisture through most summer conditions and only needs supplemental water during extreme heat waves or extended drought periods that last 2 weeks or more. Your time investment drops from 15 to 20 hours per month on watering and maintenance down to maybe 2 to 3 hours per month on strategic chop and drop cuts, occasional mulch top-ups, and harvest. That's an 85 to 90% reduction in labor for the same productivity or better. Cost comparison, because this matters. A typical drip irrigation system for a home garden runs $300 to $600 for professional installation, plus ongoing costs for timer battery replacements, emitter repairs, and increased water bills that add up to $100 to $200 annually, depending on your climate. Over 5 years, you're spending $800 to $1,600 on a system that makes you dependent on infrastructure that breaks and needs constant adjustment. A self-watering polyculture design costs you maybe $50 to $100 for initial plants, comfrey root divisions, clover seed, companion crop seeds, and then it's self-sustaining and self-propagating. The plants spread themselves. The system builds fertility in place without external inputs. You're not buying solutions. You're harvesting outputs while the system runs itself and gets stronger every season. Over 5 years, you're saving $700 to $1,500 in water and infrastructure costs alone, plus hundreds of hours you're not spending as an unpaid irrigation technician for your own backyard. And you can start small without risk. Pick one bed this season. Plant it as a polyculture with living mulch and 1 or 2 support species like comfrey or clover. Watch what happens over the next 3 months. Compare it directly to your traditional bed where you're still watering daily and fighting the same problems you've always fought. When you see the difference with your own eyes, the moisture retention, the reduced labor, the healthier plants, the time you're getting back, you'll expand the system to another bed next season. That's how you build confidence without gambling your entire garden on a new approach you're not sure about yet. You're running a side-by-side test that proves the concept in your specific yard with your specific conditions. You're not fighting your garden anymore. You're not spending every evening dragging hoses around or worrying about whether your timers will fail while you're on vacation for a week. You're designing a self-regulating system based on relationships and observations that indigenous growers refined over centuries of practical necessity. While your neighbors are out there every single evening playing human sprinkler and complaining about their water bills, you're harvesting tomatoes, making dinner with food you grew, and enjoying your weekends the way they were meant to be enjoyed instead of spent on maintenance labor that shouldn't exist. This isn't lazy gardening. It's intelligent design that respects your time, respects your money, and works with the basic physics of how water, soil, and plants actually function together when you stop fighting them and start designing systems that regulate themselves. If this approach makes sense, and you want more anti-garden center systems that save you time and money instead of creating dependency, hit that subscribe button right now. And drop a comment below telling me your biggest watering pain point, the specific problem that's eating your time or driving you crazy. I read every single comment, and your real-world frustrations help me make content that solves actual problems instead of just selling you more products you don't need.